Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Junkies Podcast. I hope y'all had a great holiday. Today's episode is a little bit of a different format. I asked y'all to send me some questions so that I could answer them on the show, and I want to thank everybody who submitted questions. I had a lot of fun putting this episode together. Before we get into the show, I want to take a moment to thank you all for supporting my work. I was really hesitant about taking over the show. Honestly, I didn't think anybody would want to listen to me ramble on, especially for the past 3 years, and boy was I wrong. This has been an awesome ride so far, and I'm looking forward to putting out more content this year for you all. It just goes to show you that if you're hesitant or you're afraid to start something new, just go for it. Fear and apprehension, they can be a good thing. You never know if you don't give it a shot. And if you're getting ready to take a leap or make a big decision, the one thing I recommend is don't half-ass it. Give it your best effort. If it doesn't work out, you know it's not going to be from the lack of effort. And when it does work out, you'll know it's because you gave it your all. I also want to thank all of the sponsors of the show. I could not have done all of this without the help and support of my amazing show sponsors. The gear, the studio, the travel, my time, the software, and all the other expenses related to recording, editing, and releasing the show, they add up quick. And as most of you know, prices on everything are at an all-time high, and it doesn't look like they're going to be dropping anytime soon. I really couldn't do this without all the help and support from folks like Rockmount Research and Alloys, Outlaw Leather, Everlast, Stronghand, Fronius, and CK Worldwide. These are companies that I truly believe in. They all make awesome products, and I fully endorse each of these brands. I personally use all of their equipment. Well, not all of their equipment, but I personally use their equipment and their gear. And that's one thing you can rest assured of. I won't recommend any company on here unless I've used these products for myself and I can attest to the quality. I've had a lot of other companies reach out and try to advertise on the show, but they make junk gear, and I would not recommend using that. So I won't allow them to have ad space on this show. If I won't use it myself and I can't get behind it, I'm not going to recommend it to my listeners. That being said, if you're all currently using gear that I've recommended from some of these sponsors, thank you for supporting their work as well as mine. Speaking of sponsors, I've got a couple quick words from them, and then we'll get right into the show. Today's episode of the Junkies Podcast is brought to you by Outlaw Leather, the finest custom leather work in the welding industry. When it comes to custom hoods and leather work for welding, I think of Outlaw, the original makers of custom pipeliner and tiger hoods. It seems like everyone with a Leather Working for Dummies book is trying to make custom hoods nowadays and ride on the coattails of Outlaw. They built their company from the ground up, starting with a small building just off of I-10 in Houston, Texas. Because of their care, quality, and attention to detail, they're in a much bigger facility now with an even bigger storefront in Pasadena, Texas. They still craft each piece by hand using the best quality leather available. Check them out online at outlawleather.com, and you can get 15% off all in-stock handmade leather goods when you use Junkies in the discount box at checkout. Or to get a truly custom piece, send them an email with your design and comments to info@outlawleatherllc.com, and they'll bring your dream to reality. We're also brought to you by Rockmount Research and Alloys. Guys, I am a big proponent of using the right tool for the job. And if the only tool you have at your disposal is a hammer, you're going to look at every problem like it's a nail. But we all know each problem we face, we need to use the right tool. That's why we got toolboxes at home and at work full of the right tools. Welding rods are no exception. 7018 isn't hot sauce. We can't put that shit on everything. Rockmount makes rods and wires specifically designed for maintenance welding and repair welding applications. These electrodes are formulated to weld in the harshest conditions, like dirty environments covered in paint, grease, oil, and other undesirable surface conditions. We all know we need to prep the joint before using traditional rods and wires, but sometimes it's just not possible to get the joint to ideal conditions for rods meant for initial fabrication. That's why Rockmount makes rods like Brutus that can stand up to poor surface conditions and still give you a quality weld that's going to last. Get the job done right the first time, every time with Rockmount, and make repairs that hold stronger so your equipment can last longer. Visit rockmountwelding.com to find out how they can help you tackle your toughest repair. And as a listener of the Junkies Podcast, you can get a free 1-pound tube of Tartan AAA when you spend $250 or more on their website and use AJP in the discount box at checkout. That's rockmountwelding.com. All right, y'all know what time it is. Fire up your machines, drop your hood, and turn me up 5.
Thank you for downloading show number 306 of the Junkies Podcast.
listening to the Arc Junkies Podcast, helping you make every weld better than your last with each episode. And now your host, Jason Becker.
Welcome to the first Ask Me Anything edition of the Arc Junkies Podcast. Let's go ahead and get into it. Our first question comes from Isaac on Instagram, and he says, how do you go about selecting the amazing welders to be guests on your show? Isaac, great question. I try to select people that are going to bring value to the show. I actually get a lot of people that reach out, and it's kind of obvious that they're just trying to grow their social media platform. That's not what I'm looking for when I'm selecting a guest. I want to find somebody that kind of meets the mission statement of the podcast, which is to help educate and inspire the next generation of welders. So most of the people that I bring on the show, I vet them pretty heavily. I've either met them in person at a conference or seminar or trade show, or I've had engagements with them on social media or perhaps email or phone calls. I try to select people that way. I want to make sure that they bring value to the show because that's why people tune into the show. It's not a talent show. You know, I'm not trying to bring on a bunch of people that have huge social media followings and stuff like that. That's not what this show's about. It's not what that's not what I want to do. I want to be a resource for the community, and the only way to be a resource for the community is to bring on folks that have relatable skills, relatable experiences. They can provide help and wisdom and kind of just speak from what they've been through, you know. And I've had folks on here. I try to keep it as diverse as possible as far as, you know, bringing people in from all the different facets of our industry, whether it's welding, artwork, pipe welding, inspection. I try to run the full gamut just because everybody has a little bit to bring to the table. And I didn't want to make the show 100% about structural steel ironwork or about 100%, you know, pipe welding or inspection. I kind of want to mix it up just so that there's something for everybody and everybody's going to learn something every single episode that I put out. I also try to find people that are relatable, you know, so like when I had Andrea on last week, fall protection, something, you know, that's very, very important to me. I thought that would be beneficial to the audience. You know, just things like that. That's kind of how I find the guests. That's how I select the guests. I just want to make sure that what they're bringing to the table is it aligns with the show, what I'm trying to do here. Isaac also asked, what is my favorite band, beer, and welder? I would say my favorite band would have to be Metallica. It's not something that I constantly listen to nowadays, but that was like my favorite band growing up. They were a huge inspiration to me back in the early 90s. Music just played a huge part of my life growing up. But I do like music from all different genres, from country to rap to hip-hop, heavy metal, melodic stuff, indie. I mean, like I run the gamut. I got a pretty good, I got an eclectic taste in music. My Spotify is all over the place, but favorite band by far would probably have to be Metallica. And my favorite beer, there's a German beer called Leffe, Leffe. They make some really good stuff. And if you can't find that, Shinerbach is a close second. I do like Shinerbach, especially when I go down to Texas because it's there, it's fresh. It's just a good all-around beer. And then my favorite welder. Oh, that's a tough one. I would probably have to say like the Lincoln S350, which they don't make anymore, so probably the S550 that has the advanced module. They call it the Tower of Power. It can run every single process, whether it's stick, MIG, TIG, flux core. It's an AC/DC machine, constant current, constant voltage. I mean, that would be, if I had a massive fabrication company, that would be the machine to have in there, just because you can do so much with it. It does take up a pretty decent sized footprint, but there's like nothing that you can't do with that thing. I mean, you can carbon arc cut with it. You can weld every one of the processes. It's got all the different advanced modes of metal transfer, like STT, Rapid Arc, Rapid X. So it's something for everybody. But I mean, that's a high dollar machine. That's probably my favorite heavy industrial machine. As far as light industrial for like the home and stuff like that, I would say the Everlast Lightning MTS 275. That thing is a beast of a machine. It's got a lot of power, and again, it's a multi-process machine. So stick, MIG, AC and DC TIG, flux core. You can pretty much run everything with that machine. So, heavy industrial, the Lincoln S350 or the S550 with the advanced module. And then for like home hobby use or small business owner, I would say the Everlast Lightning 275. Both great machines. Can't go wrong with either one of them. Brian Otto wants to know, how did I get into welding? I think I've told this story. I know I've told it on other podcasts. I don't know if I've told it on this podcast, but I used to work during the summer with my dad. And at the time, he used to dig swimming pools. So he would run the backhoe and dig swimming pools, and I'd go out there and shape the swimming pool, kind of do like the fine detailed work with a shovel to give the pool its final shape, make sure it was hitting grade and all that stuff. And one day after work, I can't remember why, but we had to cut a piece of chain. And so we went back to the shop, and my dad pulled out the oxyacetylene cart and fired it up and cut this piece of chain. And at the age of 15, I thought that was like the coolest thing I had ever seen in my life. I was like, man, he just cut steel with fire. And I thought it was really cool. The next year I signed up for welding, and that was at Westside Votech. I went to West Orange High School when I was in high school, and for 2 classes a day, we could go over and take a skilled trade class, whether it's plumbing, they had HVAC, small engine repair, they culinary, they had a bunch of stuff. But I decided I was going to take welding, and it was just a really cool class. It was every single time that I walked into that shop, I was learning something new, and I liked working with my hands. I liked building stuff. So I mean, welding was just a good fit. And then when I joined the Marine Corps, I was lucky enough to become a welder while I was in. My recruiter guaranteed me one of 2 jobs, and I ended up getting welding as my primary MOS, or military occupational specialty. So that kind of worked out. You know, I kind of had an idea of what I was going to get into, what I was going to be doing. So that was good. So I got to go for an additional 6 months of training after boot camp and after Marine combat training. I got to go to my MOS school and learn how to weld for like 40 hours a week for 6 months. So that was a good time. And then when I got out of the military, I decided, I was like, man, I already got a skill set. Why not just stick with this industry? And so I just answered a help wanted ad in the local newspaper and got into structural steel ironworking by accident. The company was actually looking for somebody that could run an aluminum spool gun. And I was like, well, hell, I did that for 6 months when I was in Kuwait. We welded on howitzers, the travel locks on howitzers that were all aluminum. So they just they'd beat the piss out of them going up and down the road. So they would crack all the time. So we'd be out there repairing the travel locks on howitzers all the time. So I had quite a bit of spool gun experience. So I applied for that and got into doing that, doing stairs and handrails and stuff. And then that slowly, once that work kind of dried up with the aluminum handrails, we got more into the structural steel aspect. The other field crew that was out there doing the work, that's what they would do, is, you know, setting the columns, putting up bar joists, perimeter angle, decking, all that good stuff. And right around 2010, that's when I joined the Ironworkers Union. I was already kind of working in that industry. And so I just ended up joining the union and went through the apprenticeship program before being offered a position at the local college where I was attending. I was working on my bachelor's degree in construction, and I was offered a position teaching for Seminole State College over in Sanford, Florida. And I decided to take that and kind of been with welding education ever since. So it's been a hell of a journey, man. If you would have asked me back when I was 15, what do you want to be when you grow up? I think at the time I wanted to be a marine biologist, but yeah, that wasn't panning out. I was not all that great in school. I mean, I did okay, but I don't know. I do like working with my hands. Welding's just something that's kind of stuck with me. I've had a blast doing it, and now I get to teach it, so that's even better. You know, I think I learned more about welding being a teacher of welding and instructing others, because you have to understand the why things work and how they work, so you start understanding them at a much deeper level, just to be able to convey that information to other people. All right, Zip Tie Mechanic wants to know, what is the one industry practice that has become the norm, but is actually unsafe and people should avoid doing it? Oh, dude, immediately, grinders without guards and without handles. I did a whole comprehensive video on that. If you guys haven't seen it yet, one of the videos I did when I was with Weld.com was grinder safety, and it's a comprehensive video. I think it's about 45 minutes long, so maybe break it up into different sessions, or, you know, if you got 45 minutes to spare, go check out that entire video. So for the longest time, I did it the same way. I always used grinders without guards, without handles, the first thing you do when you get a brand new grinder right out of the box is you take the grinder out and you throw away the handle, the cheap wheel that comes with it, and the guard, because who needs that stuff, right? Apparently we all do, because grinders they're nasty animals, especially the ones with the suicide switches on them. So, but it is a fairly common practice to run and operate a grinder without a guard or without a handle on it. And now all the grinders that I have at my home shop or even over at Underground Metalworks, every single grinder has a guard on it. Every single grinder has a handle on it, and we use task-specific wheels. So we don't grind with cutoff wheels, and we don't try to cut with grinding wheels. So a lot of people will try to take a 1/4-inch hard rock and stand that on edge. Well, there's no reinforcement on the outside of that wheel, so that could potentially cause issues. So check out that grinder safety video. But I'd say that's probably one common industry practice that it's super unsafe, and people should definitely avoid doing that. But everywhere you go, you see a grinder with, it doesn't have a guard on it, doesn't have a handle on it. It's just a bad practice. And a lot of people tell me, oh, well, I can't get into the work with that guard on there. The guard prohibits me from getting the grinder where I need it to be. Well, if that's the case, they make an end grinder, and that's probably the tool you actually need. But I've seen several accidents because people don't use guards. I think I told the story of my dad. Actually, yeah, in that grinder safety video, I did a story where I was talking about it. My dad actually got parts of a cutting wheel lodged into his stomach. They went into his stomach. He was trying to cut a piece of chain. My dad cuts a lot of chain, apparently. He was cutting a piece of chain, and I think it was Father's Day one year, and the wheel was not put on properly. He just got the grinder back from his neighbor, and I can't remember if it had a guard on there or not, but the wheel separated, and it went through his stomach and damn near lodged into his spine. They had to go in and remove some of the pieces through his stomach to get them all out, and I think he still has pieces in there of that cutoff wheel just because it was safer to leave them in than it was to do additional surgery and try to take them out. So a guard probably would have prevented that. Using the correct wheel for the job would have prevented that, even though, he was using a cutoff wheel. It just wasn't set on there properly. The nut that he had, it was a conical shaped nut for a grinder, and it was not meant for the wheel that he was using. And it's bad stuff, man. So always, always, always put the guard on the grinder. And if you can't get to where you need to with that grinder, you probably need a different tool. One other common practice that I see all the time that's completely unsafe, I don't know where it came from, is if you drink milk, it'll protect you from getting sick when you're cutting and welding galvanized. Although there's some truth to it, you're not going to feel the effects. So if you go out there and you cut and grind on galvanized and you drink milk before or like right after, what it's going to do is it's going to mask the symptoms of galvanized poisoning, or what they call metal fume fever, just because of the zinc. So it's going to mask those symptoms. However, you're still getting heavily exposed to zinc poisoning. You just can't feel the effects of it. And zinc poisoning or metal fume fever, it's very similar to heat stroke. So if you ever get heat stroke one time, you're much more susceptible to getting it, and it's easier to get the second time around. So if you continuously drink milk to protect yourself from cutting and welding on galvanized materials, you're still getting exposed to that. And the next time that you go out there and you do it without drinking milk, the effects are going to hit you much, much harder. So definitely recommend do not drink milk when you're cutting and welding on galvanized. What you need to do is get either a respirator or at the source fume extraction or a PAPR system. And, set up some mechanical ventilation. If you're in a shop, set up a fan or a fume extractor. If you're outside, make sure you are downwind from that so the smoke's blowing away from you. But again, don't drink milk to try and mask the symptoms. Wear a respirator to prevent exposure. So milk's not going to... Apparently people tell you, the milk coats the lining of your stomach and it protects the galvanized from getting in. That's bullshit, because unless you're coating your lungs with milk, it's not doing a damn thing for you other than masking the symptoms. You're still getting exposure to it. So don't believe that stuff. Put guards on your grinders and put the milk down and pick up a respirator. Chris Rebello wants to know, how do I keep my beard looking so good? Thanks, Chris. I actually got to meet Chris up at CanWeld this year in Canada. It's an awesome event. But yeah, as far as my beard, I've spent ridiculous amounts of money buying fancy, expensive beard oils, and they all suck. A lot of times they use, rubbing alcohol. So a lot of the beard oils and stuff that smell really good, they use rubbing alcohol to kind of cut the oils so that you can actually get better smells and scents and stuff out of them. And that ends up drying out your beard. So the best thing that I've actually found is it's called Garnier Fructis, and it's like a coconut oil. So it's meant for just hair in general, but I found that that's probably the best thing that I've ever put in my beard. So yeah, wash your beard every day and use that coconut oil, and that seems to work pretty good. And then I just comb it and blow dry it. But yeah, that's how I take care of my beard. All right, so Brad White wants to know, how was the transition from military service into your welding career? Honestly, Brad, that was a tough time for me. That was a bit of a rough spot in my life. The military spends a great deal of time, money, and resources transitioning you from a civilian into a service member, and they don't spend much time, money, or resources transitioning you into a civilian after you've served. I hope that's changed now, but in 2005 when I got out, that was simply not the case. We spent about a week doing this program called SEPS and TAPS. So SEPS is separations, and then TAPS is transition assistance program. And basically you go in there for a week, and they teach you how to write a resume, give you some half-ass interview skills, tell you not to cuss, and they provide you with a couple different resources, like, here's how you find your local VA, here's a couple different websites you can go to look for a job. It was pretty straightforward. I don't think it was the best use of a program. I think they could do a lot more for our servicemen, men and women that are transitioning from the military, getting back into civilian life. I only did 4 years. I know a lot of people, they've done 6 years, 8 years, 12 years. I would imagine it's even more difficult for them. But I know that when I got out, I kind of felt lost, felt alone. Felt like the work that I was doing in the military had substance. It mattered. I needed to be there. I had missions that I had to take care of. I had goals that I needed to accomplish. I had things I needed to do. And when I got out of the military, I didn't have any of that. So I think the best thing I probably could have done, the best thing that I did was get a job like shortly right after I got out of the military. I think I was home for about 2 weeks, and I went and got a job. And it was in welding. I went to work for an ironworker company, and it was a lot of folks that run blue collar work. They're very huge supporters of the military men and women. So I think it was really easy for me to get a job when I got in there. I had a lot of transferable skills as far as like the welding aspect of it. But construction and military folks, they kind of have the same mentality. They're a little bit more rough around the edges. You can use a lot of dark humor to get through work. So, that helped me out quite a bit. But, I also had a good group or network of friends and family that I could lean on and talk to. I know not every service member has that luxury when they get out. So it's a lot more difficult for some than it was for me. But I would say that was probably one of the most difficult transitions I had ever made in my life. And I'm really glad that I got into welding. I'm really glad that I stuck to the welding, that that I had those transferable skills. That helped me out quite a bit. Like I said, the military didn't really do a whole lot for me during that transition period. Hell, they don't even call you once you're out. Just to follow up. Hey, how you doing? How you settling in? Is there anything we can do for you? Like, there's none of that. You're a memory. Once you're done, once you leave that gate, you're an afterthought. They still have stuff to do. Rightly so. That's not the business that the military is in, but I think the VA could do a better job helping men and women transition from the military into the civilian sector. And now, don't get me wrong, they might be doing that now, but I know that simply was not the case when I was getting out back in 2005. Hopefully things are a little bit different now. I know the VA hospitals working a lot better. That's running a little bit more smooth. Wait times are down, so that's definitely a plus. But I'm hoping that they do more for transitioning service members getting into the civilian sector as far as different resources. I know one of the other questions that I'm getting ready to answer here on the show in a couple of minutes, I've got some different resources and stuff for another gentleman that's kind of getting ready to face the same thing. So I'll get into that a little bit further. But yeah, Brad, that transition, what it was like, it sucked. It was probably one of the worst points of my life, transitioning out because, like I said, I thought, what I was doing in the military, that mattered. And when I got out, I kind of felt useless. And luckily, especially getting into welding education and helping others, I've found my why, if that makes sense. It's given me a reason to keep going, keep pushing, keep doing things, keep growing as an individual, help, inspire others. And, so that's kind of, I think the best thing for me is finding your why. Once you get out of the military, you got to find your why. Because while you're in, they tell you exactly what your why is. You've got different missions and tasks and objectives to complete. So you kind of focus in on that. But once you get out of the military, if you don't have missions and tasks and objectives, you can go to some dark places really quick. So I think staying busy that's going to help a lot of servicemen and women once you get out, once you're done with your military career. Staying busy, finding a why, finding a purpose, that's going to help tremendously. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break. This segment of the Arc Junkies podcast is brought to you by Strong Hand Tools. These guys are constantly innovating. It's like they put out a new tool every week to increase your fabrication speed and accuracy. Whether it's fabrication tools, layout tools, shop mobility, equipment, or their fixturing components and accessories. Strong Hand is dedicated to making your life as a welder and fabricator easier and more efficient. Check out all their tools, tables, and accessories and purchase Strong Hand products directly through WorkbenchPros.com. Workbench Pros. It's where the pros go. We're also brought to you by Everlast Welders. Whether you're new to welding, running a side business out of your garage, or outfitting your small fabrication business, Everlast has a machine for you at an affordable price. Why spend all that money on a paint job? Now's the time to weld green and save green in the process. They're still running their holiday bundle packs at EverlastWelders.com. Head on over and see which machine is right for you and ring in the new year making your own fireworks in your garage with a new machine from Everlast. This is the brand that I use at home to do all of my side work and miscellaneous projects. Everlast Welders. Weld mean, weld green. Now let's get back to the show. All right, the next question comes from Lunchbox Welder. What's a good welding program in Florida for an individual being released from prison? Oh man, there's several good programs down here in Florida. One that I'm familiar with, pretty much any of your tech schools. Those are going to be good. I know that a criminal record, depending on what you were incarcerated for, it's not going to be held against you. So while I was teaching over at Valencia, I had a bunch of felons in my class. I mean, they were probably some of the best students that I had in class because they knew that if they didn't, get their stuff straightened out and start doing the right things and, making a different type of life for themselves, they were just going to go right back in. So I think the incarceration process and the rehabilitation process that they went through while they were in, I know that's not the case for everybody, but it seemed to work for these individuals. They were probably some of the most hardworking and dedicated students that I had. I probably had the least amount of problems from them. Same thing with military service members. Really didn't have a problem from felons or veterans. That was the two easiest students that I had while I was in the program. So I would say any of the tech schools would be a good place to start. I also know that the different unions throughout the state of Florida, and it's probably the same all across the U.S., but the different unions that are out there, again, depending on what you were incarcerated for, you should be able to get into one of the apprenticeship programs super simple. So I know a lot of people that are coming out of the penitentiary, they don't have access to funding, so they're not going to be able to afford tuition. But if you get into an apprenticeship program, that apprenticeship program is completely free of charge until you become a journeyman or a journey person. At that point, you're going to have to start paying dues. And a lot of people want to throw shade about paying dues, but I think the $30.50 that I spent every month as a structural steel iron worker that covered the cost of my apprenticeship program, plus all my insurance, my benefits, my rate of pay, I'd gladly pay that $30.50. I know it's probably different now. The costs associated for dues are a little bit different, but yeah, I'd say any of the apprenticeship programs for the unions, you're going to get in there, you're going to learn a skill, you're going to be able to work while you're doing that, because a lot of people that are coming out of the being incarcerated, they need to make money rather quick because, they need to build a home life for themselves, they need reliable transportation and all that stuff. So going to a trade school or tech school is probably not the best option because you're looking at long-term training, anywhere from 6 months to a year. You've got tuition, you've got housing, you've got all the costs associated with going to school. That adds up really quick. And a lot of people that are coming out of prison, they don't have that luxury. They need to get out there. They need to start making money an honest way. So I would definitely recommend getting into one of the skilled trade unions, whether it's plumbing and pipe fitting, structural steel ironwork, the sheet metal union, any of those. Hell, even the carpenters union, they have a welding program. I think they're allowed, at least in Florida, they're allowed to weld up to 3/8 of an inch thick material. So any of those programs right there, they can get in there, they can learn the job, and then they can perform the job. So they're getting paid while they're going through the union. So I would recommend any of those programs, tech school or getting into an apprenticeship program through your local union. Phil Garland, he asks, what's the most unconventional thing you've done in welding? Not by the book, but just for fun or just to see what happens. Ergo, run a stick rod from a TIG torch or pulse on stick. He also wants to know what's the scariest thing you've ever seen when it comes to welding, either on a job site or with a process itself. I think the most unconventional thing I've done when it comes to welding just for fun was I've seen a video on AC pulse stick welding. And so I set that up on one of the machines at the school. We had the Aspect 375 from Lincoln, and I set the machine up as if I were going to, as far as the settings, I dialed it in and told the machine that I was going to do AC TIG welding. And instead of hooking up the TIG torch, I hooked up an electrode holder and used the 7018. And we did 7018 uphill on AC pulse. So I actually had to get the arc initiated with the foot pedal. And I just used the lift arc option. So as soon as I pushed down on the pedal and struck an arc, I was able to let off the foot pedal. I think I put that on 4T. So it continuously ran. And I was able to go uphill. But the cool thing was I could offset I could do the DC offset or amplitude adjustment. So I think I was running like 160 amps on the DC positive side of the cycle and like 120 amps or 110 amps on the DC negative part of the cycle. So I was able to get ample penetration and fill as I was going. And then you can set your hertz too. I think we were running like 60 hertz. So it's going back and forth 60 times a second. I think it would be kind of cool to do some testing on that. I'd actually like to get back in there and try it again and do some macros and some bend tests just to see the penetration profile. But I know AC pulse welding on stick is allegedly pretty big over in Europe. I guess they do that quite a bit for open root stick applications. And they use 7018. So the whole process with stick welding is completely, it's a low hydrogen process. So a lot of times over here, we'll run like a 60-10, either uphill or downhill, and then we'll do the fill and cap with 7018. So you got a little bit of cellulose in the root. So that kind of induces hydrogen into the material. But then, you'll do like a post-weld heat treatment or that additional heat input from the 7018 will kind of pull out some of that hydrogen. I think it'd be kind of cool to run that entire process, stick welding, low hydrogen the whole way out. I have not tried open root applications with 7018, but like I said, I guess it's pretty common over in Europe. I would like to try that as well. So that's probably the most unconventional thing I've ever done is set a machine up basically for AC TIG welding and just used a 7018 stick electrode instead. It was a pretty cool experiment, and it worked out rather well. He also wanted to know the scariest thing I've ever seen when it comes to welding, either on a job site or with a process itself. Oh, man. So I watched a video on Instagram, and these guys, I'm not going to say the name of the company or the school, but they were taking a file, and they were smacking a grinding wheel, putting dents in a grinding wheel before they used the grinding wheel so that they said that it would make the wheel cut better. I don't know about you guys, but I would not want to compromise the structural integrity of a grinding wheel that's running at over 11,000 RPMs. Why would you want to beat on a grinding wheel and then flip that switch on and have that thing come apart on you? There's a better way. Contrary to popular belief, they actually make grinding wheels that are meant to be ran on the side. It's called a cutoff wheel or a pipeliner wheel. It kind of looks like a cutoff wheel, but it's about an 1/8 inch thick. That's the wheel that you want to use to make your wheels or to make your job easier and get it to cut better. You don't want to take a file and beat the piss out of a grinding wheel and then turn it on. You're just asking for problems, especially going back to one of the earlier conversations that we were having on here about people not using guards or handles on their grinder. Why would you want to take a grinding wheel and beat the hell out of it and then throw it on a grinder without a guard on it and flip that switch on? Is beyond me to get it to cut better. There's better ways to do that. There's easier ways. Use the right tool for the right job. But yeah, that's probably one of the scariest things I've ever seen when it comes to the welding industry, either on the job site or the process itself. That and anybody cutting on a drum or a tank that has not been properly purged and cleaned. You want to make sure that you properly purge and clean any drum or anything, regardless of what it used to hold in it, because a lot of times those things get recycled. So it could have been used for acetone at one point, and then the last thing that it was used on was, something completely inert, but it may still have residual acetone in there. So anytime you cut or grind on a tank or a 55-gallon drum or anything like that, fill it up with water or fill it up with argon or CO2 or some other inert gas before you do any cutting or welding on those things. They can blow up and they can kill you. So be very careful with that as well. Greg Stoner wants to know, when are you and Brian going to do some more videos together? Greg, I don't know that that's going to happen. I no longer do any work for weld.com. They're too far away. The travel was killing me. It was about a 5-hour commute every day to do videos, and I know the entire management team, everything's pretty much changed over there. So unless there's another company that can get Brian and I together, I don't know that we'll be doing videos in the future. Although I did have a lot of fun making videos with Brian. We still stay in contact on a regular basis. I still go out there and judge his skills welding competition every year, the Skills USA competition. I go out there, I try to get out there at least once a year. I also participate on his advisory board. And then every once in a while, we'll get to hang out together and do something cool. But as far as doing videos, I don't know that ship is ever going to sail again, man, unfortunately. Like I said, I had a blast doing it. I just don't know where the opportunity would lie for us to get back and do some videos together. All right. Kevin Fox asks, what's up with folks talking about carbon arc gouging destroying the machine? Is this from like back in the day and it did? Are folks just afraid of messing up their $4,000 to $20,000 inverter machines? And this goes for machines that have settings for it as well. Kevin, I've also heard this. I do believe it is a myth, but I reached out to one of my buddies, Padraig Bean, and he essentially said it's because the high amount of amperage that you're using while carbon arc gouging, people are using it for underrated machines. So if you have a smaller machine and you're trying to run quite a bit of amperage through it for carbon arc gouging, you're probably going to damage the internals of the machine. But if you have a machine that's rated for carbon arc gouging and it has sufficient amperage to be able to run that carbon arc gouging rod, you should not have any issues. So when I was in education, one of the modules we always taught was carbon arc gouging. We would run those on the Lincoln C300s, and it has a carbon arc gouging mode, and that is a 300 amp machine, and we were probably only operating, right around 250 amps. We didn't have any issues once we were done carbon arc gouging, never messed up, any part of the machine. So it's probably just a myth, to my understanding, because like I said, I've ran carbon arc gouging. I've done it off of Miller Bobcats and Trailblazers. I've done them off the Lincoln machines. That's not something I would want to fire up the little machines, the inverters that I have in my garage. I'm not going to be doing carbon arc gouging with that. But if you have a machine that's built for it, you have a high enough amperage, you should not run into any issues. Probably just a myth because somebody screwed their stuff up because they weren't doing it correctly. But say, for instance, if you got a 3/16 carbon arc gouging rod, you're going to run that somewhere between 200 to 250 amps. If you have a 300 amp machine, you should have no problem pushing that. However, if you get a 300 amp machine and you step up to a 1/4 inch carbon arc gouging rod and you're pushing 300 to 400 amps, you're running at the very high end of that machine. You might run into some issues that way. But it's just like anything else. Keep the duty cycle and your maximum amperage that machine's going to be able to put out. Keep that into consideration. Use something lower, and you should be just fine. All right, Dan Hansen reached out on Instagram, and he says, I'm interested in getting into the welding industry, but not sure how I would fit in best. I am an active duty Marine infantry officer and have a degree in animal sciences. My background includes 5 years of various blue-collar work, and although I have some experience driving trucks, heavy equipment, and welding, I never got any certs or licenses. By the time I leave the Marine Corps, I will be 28, and I will not have many skill sets that translate directly to a beautiful-looking resume, but would love any advice or suggestions on how you think someone like me can find my way into the industry and able to support my family as soon as I get out of the Marines. Thanks in advance, and I love the podcast, Dan. Dan, first of all, I'm happy to hear that you love the show. And next, thank you so much for your service, and Semper Fi, brother. We chatted a little bit on Instagram back and forth, but I wanted to wait till today to kind of give you some guidance and some resources. First of all, you have plenty of transferable skills. So even though I was a welder in the Marines, I had directly transferable skills, but you have a lot of different skill sets that you don't realize transfer. So for instance, I went ahead and pulled up my old resume. I'm going to kind of give you some information or read you a couple of the bullets that were on my resume that translate directly into the civilian sector that aren't necessarily welding related. And you're probably going to have a lot more than I am, but some of the stuff you can put on your resume. So I put supervised 54 government personnel, assigned various duties and responsibilities, ensured follow-up action was completed. I was a platoon sergeant, so you see how just rewording your tasks and objectives can translate directly into the civilian sector. One other thing, while I was in Iraq, I was also not only the platoon sergeant, but I was also the NCOIC of the tool room. And so I put on here, I conducted inventory control and inspection of government equipment in excess of $5 million with 100% accuracy. So that shows you you can be trusted with a large budget and high dollar equipment items and still maintain accuracy as far as inventory and control. So I'm sure you do the same thing with Marines and gear and all that good stuff out there. You start adding that stuff up, and it'll look very impressive on a resume. So another thing I put on here was provided training for new personnel on shop safety and current policies. You could do the same thing. You've got young Marines coming into the platoon. You're providing training for new personnel, on day-to-day operations, talking about, work site safety and current policies. Those are transferable skills into the civilian sector you can list on your resume. There's probably 100 of them. Some other resources that are out there, if you're looking to get into welding, there was a program called Operation Next. So I'm not sure, you said you were going to be in the Kansas area when we spoke on Instagram. You could probably find a local tech school that's close to your base. I know the military will kind of release you from active duty for 6 months prior to your EAS, where you can go to school and you can pick up a skilled trade, and it doesn't come off of your GI Bill. So the government pays, or the military pays 100% of your tuition while you're still on active duty, and they just release you from active duty for the last 6 months. I mean, you're still going to have to go back once you've completed and check in with your unit, but at least that way you can go out and get weld certs. You can get, the fundamentals of welding and all that good stuff. You can start documenting some training and stacking some certs while you're in the process of EASing, or EAS, so is end of active service for those that don't understand that term. So while you're in the process of doing your EAS, you can go out and get transferable skills at a local tech school or local community college, or possibly even some of the for-profit institutions. Look into Operation Next. And I think there's some other things you can go down and talk to the folks over at SEPs and TAPs and find out, or just get with your chain of command and find out what options are available for you to take classes and go to school during the last 6 months while you're in the military. After that, you can look into helmetstohardhats.org. That's a great resource for people getting out of the military, transitioning from the military, and getting into the different skilled trades programs and stuff like that. There's a bunch of benefits for apprenticeships and all kinds of stuff like that. There's also some different resources on there. You can get a hold of some people, and they can show you and tell you exactly how to transition from being in the military to the skilled trades programs. Another thing you can do, like I mentioned, for the young man planning on transitioning from being incarcerated, you can look into your local unions. Local unions have veterans preference, so you don't have to have any transferable skills when you join a union, because they're going to start you out at an apprenticeship program. And so you're going to learn very similar, going through boot camp and going through Marine combat training and going through, going up through the ranks until you hit the fleet. It's going to be very similar. If you join a union, you go through their apprenticeship program, and then you're earning while you're learning. So you go to school either a couple nights out of the week throughout your apprenticeship program, or some of the unions now, they're switching over to, you're going to go out and work for 6 months, and then every 6 months you'll go to school for 2 weeks. During those 2 weeks, most of the unions don't pay you while you're going to school, so you just save up some money while you're currently working. That way, when you go to that school for 2 weeks, you can still sustain your cost of living expenses and all that good stuff. But yeah, those are a couple different options that you can look into. Like I said, go talk to your chain of command, find out what resources are available so you can get some training during the last 6 months of your active duty service. Check out Operation Next. Look into helmetstohardhats.org. And like I said, you've got plenty of transferable skills. Focus on leadership skills, attention to detail, discipline, any of the classes that you attended while you were in the military. A lot of that stuff are transferable. So I hope that helps you out. Dan, if you got any other questions, you got me on Instagram, reach out. I'll be more than happy to provide any additional resources or help out in any way that I can. I know it sucks, like I mentioned earlier, transitioning from the military, going back into the civilian sector. That was a very difficult time in my life. If you need anything, Devil, I've been there before. Reach out to me, man. I'll get you linked up with some different resources. I'll try to help out any way that I can. I wish you nothing but the best of your luck transitioning from the military and getting into the civilian sector. And I want to be the first one to welcome you to the welding industry. It is a great community. All right, last question. Ethan Johnson says, would you recommend joining a company that sends welders around the country as a job for a 23-year-old with just 4 years of experience? Ethan, yes, I would definitely recommend going out and traveling around the country as a welder. You're going to learn so much. Traveling as a welder is going to be like an experience multiplier. You're going to learn so much moving around the country, going from one project to the next, whether it's new construction, shutdowns or repairs or anything like that. You're going to learn so much in such a short amount of time that by the time you're done traveling and you get back to your home state, it's going to be super easy to find out, exactly what area of welding you want to get into and, accelerate in that career. So, I mean, it's just going to be an awesome time. You're going to get to see so many different things, meet so many different people, network, build connections. I think it's going to be an awesome time for you. And like I said, man, if you don't have anything holding you back, if you're not married, you don't have young kids, now is the time to travel. You don't want to wait until you're married, you got kids, you got other commitments and everything, and start traveling around. The money you're going to make while you're traveling is probably better than anything you're going to get close to the house. One thing I would recommend, keep your nose clean, man. A lot of people, they get out there and, they start welding and they're going from one town to the next, kind of like Roman gypsies, and they make a lot of money and they make poor decisions with that money. And they spend that, whether it's at the bar or at the different clubs or whatever. Don't do that. Save up your money. Another pitfall that people get into is they buy a bunch of stuff they don't need, like a new fancy truck and like all these, high dollar designer clothes and, badass custom welding machines and custom beds on the truck and all that stuff. Dude, save your money. Get out there, maybe do 4, 5, 6 years out on the road, save all that money, come back home, put a nice size down payment on a house and, start setting up some roots. I would highly recommend reaching out to Richard Roybal. He's a financial advisor. That's the guy I'm currently using. I've had him on a couple episodes of the podcast. But I highly recommend saving your money. Be a good steward of your money. Don't go out there and make all this big money and start pissing it away. Save that, invest it. Be smart with your money. Live below your means while you're out there traveling. Maybe get a fifth wheel. I don't know what company you're going to be going to work for, if they're providing hotels or whatever the case may be as far as lodging, but, save up all your money. Save your per diem, live below your means, and use that money for once you're done traveling. That way you kind of set yourself up for success. You come back here, like I said, put a sizable down payment down on a house, and, that way you have a more reasonably priced mortgage, and then come back and start planting some roots, or, set up your own business or whatever the case may be. But yes, I think traveling right now, at the age of 23, even with 4 years of experience, you're just going to learn so much in such a short amount of time, and you're going to make a lot of good money doing it. But like I said, just be smart with your money, be smart with your time, and yeah, dude, I think it will be a great experience for you. Had I not joined the military when I got into welding, I probably would have went the traveling route, but I did enough traveling while I was in the military that I was pretty much done with all the traveling. I wanted to get something close to the house. and, you know, spend time with family, loved ones, and friends and all that stuff when I got out of the military. So I decided to get a job where I could stay local, you know, because I'd already had my fill of travel. But yeah, you're young enough, dude. Go out there and get it, man. Hit me back on Instagram. Let me know if you take that job or not. All right, everyone. I want to thank you for submitting the questions. This was a lot of fun. I think I might do a couple of these Ask Me Anything episodes throughout the year. So if you enjoyed this format and you have some questions you want to ask, you can go ahead and shoot them to me in a DM on Instagram at Junkies Podcast, or you can always shoot me an email, show@arcjunkies.com. I'll put both methods of contact down in the show notes. Once again, I want to thank y'all for making this show a success and supporting my work. I couldn't do it without you guys. I really appreciate you, and I hope you all have an awesome new year and a great rest of your week. Stay safe out there, and until next time, make every weld better than your last.